Yep, we're talking about the sellout streak.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by KALSHI. For a limited time, download the KALSHI app and use code Locked On to get $10 when you trade $10.
Okay, welcome in. You found the Locked On Nebraska podcast. It is Thursday, August 20th. Can you believe it? We are at August 20th. It is near now. The football season is near. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Counter Happer, 1620 The Zone, is right there nodding his head in agreement about it being August 20th. And we asked the question today, timely, because the football season is near. Nebraska opens at home 2 weeks from the day after tomorrow, that being September 5th, 2 weeks from Saturday.
17 days.
And it has several thousand, I think is probably the best way to put it, tickets available for that game as of August 10th. This is information reported by WOWT, the NBC affiliate in Omaha this week. Nebraska's 8,000 to 10,000 tickets sold short of a sellout for each of its 7 home games. That's 8,000 to 10,000 for every one of them, including the big games in league play, but more pressing, the 3 non-conference games for which it has sold approximately, or had as of August 10th, sold approximately 74,000 tickets. So in how much jeopardy would you say, and then we'll get into a discussion about this and some nuance that it entails, in how much jeopardy is the sellout streak?
It's just hard for me to believe that it's, I think it is. I think it is in jeopardy, but I think it's been in jeopardy for a long time. It's just hard to believe that it's going to end, or the powers that be will let it end at any point. It just feels like that's not going to happen. And then especially when you consider that the capacity will come down starting next year with the stadium being under construction. Like, it just feels like if you make it through these 3 games
next year.
Yeah. Like if it just feels like if you make it through these 3 games, you're going to be good for the next 5 years. Until the stadium reopens and then the capacity will come down from there, and who knows where Nebraska football is at in that case. So this is a conversation that we've heard many, many times over the years, right around this time of the year. Hey, tickets aren't going very fast. And there's no doubt that Nebraska's made a concerted effort to get people in the gates and buying tickets for those 3 games in particular, pairing them along with other games. As you said, Mitch, I'm not worried about the Indiana game and the Ohio State game. Those will sell out. They're just later on in the season.
If Nebraska is taking care of business.
They'll sell out for India. I put that on any sort of prediction board you could possibly make.
Take. That's a bold take.
Yeah, they're selling out the Indiana game. It doesn't matter what their record is.
Okay. Well, they've sold out 410 consecutive games, so that's probably a safe bet. This was a timely report and some nice work by Channel 6 and John Chapman, who did the story, talking to some fans about the importance of the sellout streak. And I thought that the numbers that were included at the end of it were especially notable because Nebraska was forthcoming with providing the number of tickets that have been sold to date, and a little bit jarring to see that the Huskers were that far away. So some things to know here. First of all, I talked to Troy Dannen about this in Chicago at Big Ten Media Days last month. And one of the things he told me was that most of the games last year sold out about a week before the games.
Yep.
So they have already been in a situation where it's a little bit precarious. And as we know, we'll get into this more in the second segment, I suppose, although I feel like it's just rehash. Nebraska has had help along the way in keeping the sellout streak alive.
Definitely.
Dating to 1962, especially in recent years when it's employed things such as the red carpet experience, where tickets have been purchased or just flat out donated to underprivileged kids to be able to get into non-conference game or even perhaps a Big Ten game. As many as 2,400 tickets for one game have been used for that purpose. And then the big thing that Dannen shared with me and with some other reporters in Chicago is that Nebraska has sold tickets to its resale partner, SeatGeek, in recent years for a discount. And then the tickets are sold, even if they're not sold. As far as Nebraska goes, they're sold. They were purchased by SeatGeek.
Yeah.
And SeatGeek may or may not sell every seat that it has at its disposal, but the sellout streak lives. And in Dannen's desire and need to squeeze every last dollar that he can get out of the properties of Nebraska athletics, the main property being Nebraska football, he has instructed his staff to sell the tickets themselves. Let's not include a middleman and give them a cut and sell them at a reduced price. If anybody's going to sell them at a reduced price to the fans, as far as Dannen is concerned, it'll be Nebraska.
Yep.
And they started that a few weeks ago with mini plans and multi-game packages and reduced tickets, buy one, get one free in some instances, as low as $25 for some of these non-conference games. Of course, they also paired the North Dakota game in week 3 with a Cole Swindell concert. So get a ticket to the game, you get to see a concert. All of these things are different than in some of the previous years.
Yeah, it's interesting that way, and that does make it a little bit harder for Nebraska, I think, to sell the tickets if you're not taking what I think would be perceived to be what you just explained, a little bit of a shortcut. If you're just ditch them off to a middleman beforehand, which I think if push comes to shove, that is exactly the reason why the sellout streak won't end. Because at
what point would SeatGeek not take them? Because SeatGeek's got to feel like it can sell them. Like, they're not going to take 4,000 tickets on Thursday of game week, I wouldn't imagine.
I don't know. I guess I don't know how that works. But it does feel like a little bit of a fail-safe in this situation. I guess, yeah.
Within reason. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know how that all goes, but I just think there's a lot of reasons, some of what I talked about before, and given that we've kind of been down this road a little bit, and we're still 2 weeks away from the season. Now, I understand the other side of it too. The other side is, well, the games aren't that intriguing. The team is not particularly intriguing. And, I'm just not like, it costs a lot, and it's a whole day, and it's all these different things. Like, that conversation has been ongoing constantly for the last, I don't know, a long time now, a decade. Like it's been a long. We've been talking about the same thing, and so I do think ultimately Nebraska will continue the sellout streak, even if it is done mildly artificially, which does seem like it has been. They've had that for a while now.
I don't think they'll lose it in week 1. That seems unrealistic. It's the first game of the year. People are going to get excited over the next 2. I think people are already getting excited, but they'll get more excited over the next couple of weeks. And I believe the tickets will go without a whole lot of extra help against Ohio. Week 2 is probably a different story, because then you're playing another MAC opponent. We'll mention Eddie George, by the way, the Bowling Green coach later in the show. He comes up in a different conversation. And I could see them having some problems. I could see them getting to week 2, especially if it's a somewhat uninspiring performance against Ohio. Say you win 35-17. I could see just the malaise a little. There's it's not close enough to the Big Ten yet for people to be hyped up about that. You got these three lowly foes on the September schedule. Wouldn't it be something in the state of Nebraska if the weather is what ends the sellout streak? Because we get to the week of the Bowling Green game, which is September 13th, and there's that's a night game, so it's not going to be because of the heat, but there's I don't know, storms in the forecast. So there's not this late surge of ticket sales that it would take to get them over the top. I suppose if it's that close, then a donor will step in and buy them.
But that's where I'm at. I'm like, there's just there's too many safety nets around for it not to be technically sold out, or for them to even call it sold out. I mean, that's a pretty low threshold. We've seen the scan ticket numbers over the years, and some of those very, very low. That doesn't matter in a sellout, because all that matters is that you sell the tickets. So I just think there's a whole bunch of safeguards in place for it to not end.
Let me explain that really quick, and then we'll take a break and we'll come back and talk more about Troy Dannen and some of the notable questions on this. Okay, so yeah, you mentioned that the tickets scanned, and those can be down in the 60s, like under 70,000, and have been for some games if it's really cold or if it's a bad opponent. And that doesn't matter for the sellout, because I think most fans understand this, but the number that they give us, the number that they announce, which for every one of the 7 home games last year was 86,000. It was just over 86,000, none under and none up to 87. And that's a number that they derive from taking the capacity of the stadium, which is 82,800 right now, roughly. And then they add in all the people who are there that don't have tickets, who have passes, media, network TV, officials, scouts, coaches, players, all of that. And they get 3,000 to 4,000 extra that gets them to 86,000. So when you see those numbers and hear about tickets scanned and it's 74,000 or 71,000 or 67,000, that is to set that is a legitimate sellout. The legitimacy comes into question when they have sold the tickets in ways that aren't really selling them. Like if they sell them at a great discount to a ticket broker or a donor, or their giveaways for a charitable cause.
Yeah. I think that's relatively self-explanatory. And in that vein, it has been a little touch and go a lot over the years, certainly with the scan ticket numbers, but then with the tickets that are actually bought as well. And Nebraska's had to put some, as you mentioned, the red carpet thing and a whole bunch of other deals just in place to be able to say publicly that they sold out. And like I said, I have no reason to believe that's not going to continue. I'm definitely worried about it, and I understand the concern about it, but I just don't feel like this differs too much from the conversation that we've had, I don't know, every year for the last 5.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
How much should fans be concerned? We'll tackle that question when we come back. Okay, we're talking about football, and before the season even kicks off, everyone's making predictions. We're making predictions. You're making predictions. When it comes to the NFL, who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at the end of the season? On KALSHI, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. That is right. Here's an example. Will the Kansas City Chiefs win the NFL championship this season? Right now, the Chiefs, Emmett Johnson, Patrick Mahomes, they're trading at 6%. That means that a $100 trade would pay out $1,563.66 if the Kansas City Chiefs win it all at the end of the season. That is enticing, attractive. On KALSHI, this is also attractive. You're trading against peers in a live market. It means there's no house, and as the probability changes, you can buy in and buy out of your position, trade the draft pick, the game, and more on KALSHI. Download the KALSHI app and use the code LOCKEDON to get up to $500 in bonus credits when you trade just $25. KALSHI, KALSHI. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. KALSHI products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Something I've got a variety of different answers on over the years. What would happen if the sellout streak ended? Would you care if the sellout streak ended? And the answers vary from, yes, I want to keep this alive and I don't care. I'll do it at any cost, artificially keep it alive. I think it's the thing that connects us to the past and all those different things. all the way to the polar opposite of that, which is no, I think they should purposefully end it. I've heard that.
Just let it die. Just let it die. Yeah.
More and more, I've heard, let it die. Like, purposefully, like on purpose. There's no,
just hold some tickets back. Don't let the fans know they're available.
If it's going to die, then let it die.
You let it happen. You can let it happen naturally. I mean, I think there's a valid case to be made that wouldn't be a bad thing to let it happen naturally. Sure. And you're going to sell the tickets if you're there, in part because the whole point of this, other than the pride factor, is for Nebraska to make money through selling tickets. And if there's money to be made on ticket sales, you're going to do that. So you're not going to kill it. Let's hold back one ticket and then the sellout streak is over. No, you're going to sell every last ticket you can.
Ending it. Yeah, like you're at. So I don't see that. I don't like it. Could be beneficial or whatever. Like there, because I
think it's possible. I think there's a case to be made for that.
But I don't see any need to do that. If you don't have to do that, and I think Nebraska has been pretty expert at putting together some effort over the last couple of years, a little elbow grease into figuring out how they can creatively sell these tickets and doing so at least relatively successfully.
So I dug through my interview with Troy Dannen from late July in Chicago when I asked him about the importance of the sellout streak. And that's how I put it. I said, what is the importance of the sellout streak? And he said, quote, I think psychologically it's really important for everyone in the state. There's a sign in the stadium, but I don't think it goes beyond having a psychological impact. That's a take. I think it does go beyond a psychological impact. I think it is primarily a psychological thing, but the opposite of that, it's a tangible thing when you hear it mentioned often by players. You hear it mentioned by recruits, TV commentators. And I think if it ended, the negativity would be very tangible for Nebraska, in that it would be a big story. It would be a national story that another brick has crumbled from the facade of Nebraska football. The one constant that Nebraska had dating back to its times hoisting conference championships on an annual basis and the occasional national championship, that one constant is the sellout streak. And if it's over, yes, psychologically, that's going to be tough on some people. But I also think it is a real like bullet to the shoulder of the program.
You can still say, and Matt Rhule in Nebraska, and whatever, anybody who was recruiting for Nebraska or trying to sell Nebraska would still say this. Hey, look, I have examples. This is the most dedicated fan base in America. Yeah. They go everywhere and they do everything. You just have one less example. Like the example A goes away, but it doesn't fully go away. You could still say, hey, look, they sold out every game here for 60 years.
Yes.
But then the follow-up question is, what happened? And so that kind of gets that gets a little awkward, but you could you're still the most loyal fan base in America, and Nebraska's not going anywhere in that regard.
It doesn't mean that those Saturdays against Ohio State and Iowa, and I know Iowa's on the road this year, but last year, next year, it doesn't mean that, and it's a Friday against Iowa, but it doesn't mean that those games will be any less intense and that the crowd will be any less rabid for those days. It's like, I think there is like some worry, some thought among like this, like the Nebraska consciousness that, man, if the streak ends, then like the program's over. Then like, well, now we don't even have the fans anymore. And when we have this big game where they draw great strength from the fans, like that's going to be gone. No, that's not gone. Like you could still have that without that 410, ticking to 411, 412, 413.
What do you think about this theory? I've heard this has been proffered to me a few times over the years, that once the sellout streak does end, that even less people beyond that will show up, right? They will say, well, the sellout streak's over, and my duty, my watch has ended, and I now feel the release of I don't have to go to every game to help continue something with my friends that I've been doing for the last 60 plus years.
On a given Saturday, how many people bought tickets to the game? And maybe they didn't even go, but how many people bought tickets to the game in an effort to keep the sellout streak alive because they felt a responsibility as a Nebraskan and a Nebraska fan to do it? There are some people.
It's a great question. I bet there is a number there. It's non-zero. I don't know how big. I would comment in. I mean, seriously, it's a great question. Have you ever felt that? Especially when you're looking at what you're looking at in a couple weeks, Bowling Green or Ohio, or non-season opener. You're like, I gotta go because this is what we do. I can't not go,
and it still can be.
Yeah,
it still could be. I think it's, I think there's some of that. I think there's some responsibility, even if it's like almost a subconscious thing. Like I got to do my part to help keep this alive. But ideally, Nebraska gives its fans a reason to want to go to the games that does not involve any kind of responsibility to uphold and maintain the sellout streak, that it's all about wanting to see the product on the field. And if they can get back to a place where that is the entire focus, in theory, it could be a good thing to help the team. I don't think the team is held back at all by there being a focus on the sellout streak. Let me say that. But you get all the energy going in one direction, and perhaps there's a way that not having that out there, not having that pressure out there, not having the players feel like they've got to do something because the streak might end if they play poorly this week. Like that probably.
Yeah,
there's probably a way where that could help them.
Yeah, it's not direct. It's in the background. I've always felt like there has been, we've talked about this before in other subject matters. There is a certain entitlement in being a Nebraska student athlete, a Nebraska football player in particular, because no matter what, people are going to be there for you and people are going to show up, and that you start to go down that road a little bit with this solid streak talk. Like they haven't done anything to make 90,000 people want to go to the game in especially the last 5 years, but really we're talking about 10 years here. They've gone to 3 bowl games over that period of time. So there's no real reason why they have 90,000 people in the stadium every game, except for their loyalty. And so like you get into that conversation a little bit, but I don't think it's like a direct impact. Student athletes aren't sitting there thinking about, what happens if they don't show up and what happens if, they're going to be there no matter what for me. At least I don't think.
Yeah, there are obviously games, even in that stretch of poor play for Nebraska, where the fans have had good reason to go beyond the sellout streak. You think about there have still been iconic games at Memorial Stadium. I mean, that, I know that, the fans know that. We remember the night a couple of years ago with Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter and Deion Sanders. Like nobody was there that night to preserve the sellout streak. Everybody was there because that was a rockin' great time for a football game. That was classic college football. Like
that's what you want.
Whatever you can do to make that a more common occurrence in the stadium, if it means that 1 game or 2 games or 5 games this year doesn't sell out, then that's okay. And, I don't think you're ever going to get Troy Dannen to say that or Matt Rhule to say that, but I also don't think that there is going to be like mass heartbreak across the athletic department if that number doesn't flip every week at some point, maybe even this year.
Yeah. There's a lot of arms to that conversation. It seems simple and it seems almost, material, but it really is, a thing that's woven into the fabric of the state. So it's pretty fascinating. Let's step aside real quick. Coaching tiers released by the Athletic, some nitpicks that we have coming up next.
All right, this came out a day or so ago. I think it was Wednesday on The Athletic. You can go find that on the app. Chris Vanini does good work as a national college football writer, and he ranks, one thing that he does in August is he ranks the 136 coaches in the sport at the FBS level and groups them into tiers. We had quarterback tiers earlier in the offseason, and now we got coaching tiers. So, by the way, had a beef with Chris Vanini on the socials the other night. He is in this camp that people should not feel obligated to avoid scheduling fall weddings. Like he's like, we're to a place now where you got games at your fingertips and you can watch 4 games in a quad box on your phone if you want to. So let people have their fall weddings. Pretty wild take from a guy in his position, don't you think?
I agree with Chris.
You do? What?
Sorry to derail this entire segment, but
no, we should fight about this.
Whatever you want, whatever. Like you could give up football for like 4 hours. It's fine. You get married whenever. If you feel
a wedding doesn't take 4 hours.
If you feel
it
like
takes a whole dang day.
October 24th is the best day for you to get married, then man, you better do it. And I would hope the bride or the groom, they get people to, like. If you're going to say no simply because, Nebraska's playing on the road and you got to watch it, you got to watch Gus Johnson or something like that. Like, I don't know. You can watch it on your phone. That's one of it, but I don't think it should impede you. Football shouldn't impede you from living your life. Life, bitch, life.
Life is football. Football is life.
Some people would say that. Yes.
For 15 weeks in the fall. Okay. Well, we disagree on that. Chris's coaching tiers. Let's go through some of this. Tier 1, 2 coaches, Curt Cignetti and Kirby Smart. They are the standard. Overreaction to Cignetti, or you got him at the top of the game, like with basically no peer?
No. I would have Cignetti at number 1. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I wonder how close Kirby is to getting bumped off. Yeah.
So we are doing, we're going to publish this at some point, The Athletic, in upcoming days. And I'll just give a spoiler. So this is like the Athletic staff predictions where we all have to give our 12 teams in the college football playoff, our national champion, our Heisman winner, and so on and so forth. And some of it is, part of it is bold takes. Bold, you need to come up with some bold takes, which is always a very manufactured thing to do in August. I sat down this afternoon on Wednesday, came up with my bold takes. And one of them was, I might take some heat for this. One of them was Curt Cignetti is going to lose 3 times as many games in the regular season this year as he did in his first 2 years combined.
Oh my God. So they're going to lose. They're going to lose 6 times?
No. They've lost once. Indiana lost 1 game in the regular season in his first year, and then notably 0-0 last year.
Okay, in the regular season. I know he's 38-2 or whatever.
Yeah, they lost a playoff game to Notre Dame his first year, but they've lost 1 game in the regular season. And I don't know why, but I'm saying they're going to go 9-3. And I don't know that includes a loss at Nebraska. Like, I'm not going there. But they got Ohio State and USC and some other good team, Michigan on their schedule. So 3 losses. That is a bold take right now, because I look at Indiana and I go, how are they going to lose 3 games?
Now, I will say that doesn't make Curt Cignetti any worse of a coach.
No.
Yeah, right.
Might still make the playoff. Probably not with that weak
close
non-conference schedule that they got. So, all right. So tier 2, there are 10. These are the established winners from the Big Ten. You got Ryan Day, Dan Lanning, Kyle Whittingham. Tier 3, consistency with upside. This group includes Brett Bielema, Matt Campbell, Bob Chesney, Kirk Ferentz, PJ Fleck, and Lincoln Riley. Some other names in this category: Jeff Brom, once in the Big Ten, Kenny Dillingham, Eli Drinkwitz, Josh Heupel, Kansas's Lance Leipold, Joey McGuire, friend of Matt Rhule, Dan Mullen, former coach of Anthony Calandria, and Rich Rodriguez. That's tier 3. I don't know that I put Kirk Ferentz and PJ Fleck in the same category, but okay.
I mean, it's consistent now for PJ. This is his 10th season, and he's got Minnesota winning a bowl game every year. That's pretty good.
Okay. All right. I'm fine there. You changed my mind. Tier 4, usually solid. Matt Rhule should put that out on like his door where you got the nameplate. It says Matt Rhule, usually solid.
Usually solid.
This is Matt Rhule, along with his Big Ten brethren, Luke Fickell. Matt Rhule, usually solid. Luke Fickell, Jed Fish, Pat Fitzgerald, Barry Odom, Purdue, and Greg Schiano. Some others in this group are Brent Venables, who made the CFP last year, but has had 2 6-win seasons out of 4 at Oklahoma. And then Brent Key, who beats every ranked team he plays at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it's sort of all over the place.
It is like Jed Fish. I think Jed Fish probably deserves to be as high or higher than PJ Fleck. Jed Fish has done nothing but improve teams that he's been the coach of at Arizona and Washington.
And so the Big Ten guys left would be Tier 5, David Braun. And
yeah,
then,
he's the only one in Tier 5. And then there's one in Tier 7.
Where is our dear friend Mike Loxley? There he is. He's way down
Tier
there.
7. So there's 8 tiers. Tier 7 is hot seat. And then Tier 8 is like, why are they even coming back? Pretty much.
Right.
And there's only about 6 guys in Tier 8. Loxley's in Tier 7. Others in Tier 7. And Mike Loxley will be coming to Lincoln before you know it in Week 5. Others in Tier 7 include Bill Belichick and then Eddie George, the coach of Bowling Green, who will be in Lincoln on September 13th for the end of the sellout streak.
I don't have too many gripes with the Big Ten guys and where they're placed. I think one that stood out as far as Big Ten guys were concerned was Pat Fitzgerald, even though he goes, he's technically a new coach. He's in the Rhule tier. Like, yeah, he's consistently solid and he's been consistently solid at Northwestern, but like I think they got a chance to be consistently a step or two above of where they were at Northwestern and Michigan State. So, I mean, we've been talking about him all off season. I mean, I've seen a lot from their camp and all that stuff. Like, I think they're going to get that thing turned around. I'm in on Pat Fitzgerald.
Oh, yeah. He famously won his last game against Nebraska in Ireland and then lost every other game for the remainder of that season.
That's right.
I think that probably knocks him down in my eyes just a bit. I mean, that's 1 year out of like 15 that he coached, so he definitely gets credit for what's
going on. And it just got so off the rails, and then all the stuff happened. I don't know. You never want to throw everything as a part of the conversation, so you can't throw it out. But I think the body of work for him supersedes the 1-11 year. And they weren't good before that, in the year or two before that either, by the way. So I get it.
We didn't one thing we didn't mention in Tier 5. This is where this is one below Matt Rhule. This is the David Braun tier in the Big Ten. So Fran Brown is here, coaching disciple of Matt Rhule, and then you also have Scott Frost and Deion Sanders.
Awesome. You also have Jason Eck, who's not going to be in this tier at the end of this year. And then, like there's probably 25, 30 coaches in this tier. I bet 10 of them get fired after
Tier 5.
Yeah. In Tier 5. These are guys who are kind of just hanging on for dear life on the bad side of.
Yeah. It's interesting with Jason Eck, definitely not getting fired. The New Mexico coach.
He's getting hired.
Like he's up for every Big Ten job that potentially could come open.
Mm-hmm.
So
I got one for you. Yeah. Why is James Franklin in with the like elite guys in the what is he doing there?
This could be a blind spot that Vanini has. Is that possible? I don't know if he loves James Franklin or not, but based on where he put him, it seems like that might be the case. Is he in Tier 2?
Love James Franklin. Yes, he is in Tier 2 with Ryan Day, Kalen DeBoer, Mario Cristobal, Marcus Freeman, Lane Kiffin, Dan Lanning, Sark, Dabo, and Kyle Whittingham. No chance he's in that team.
Fired last year. Like he got fired in the middle of the season because Penn State lost like 5 games in a row. Wow. Yeah. But it is body of work, and
I get it. They were consistent at Penn State for a while. I think he's a fine coach, and I think he'll probably elevate Virginia Tech a little bit. I just didn't, Virginia Tech got a great situation being able to pick him up on the rebound. Like, I don't know what Virginia Tech would have done. They have made some terrible coaching hires over the years. And so they got a great deal with him. I just don't know. I don't think he's one of the elite coaches in the game. These guys are the elite coaches in the game right now. These guys are playing for national championships. James Franklin at Virginia Tech won't do that, but he won't do that at anywhere. I mean, he's I know he took Penn State to the semifinal 2 years ago, but like they were never going to win a national championship with him.
One more I want to ask you about. What do you think about Rich Rodriguez being in tier 3 with, well, Lincoln Riley, Brett Bielema, Matt Campbell, Kirk Ferentz?
That's tough sell.
Yeah, he went 4-8 last year at West Virginia.
They're going to be bad again. They're picked like last in the Big 12.
Yeah, some of these coaches get downgraded for one bad year, and others don't. That's seemingly a trend I see here. Yeah.
Yep, that's a good pickup by you. I mean, yeah, there's a few. I bet if you gave me like 15 more minutes and I really studied this, I could come up with like 7 more cases where I want to bump guys like 2 tiers up or down. Maybe we could do that, but
could have Vanini on and yell at him.
Yeah, we could have Vanini on and ask him why he's in love with James Franklin.
Okay, that's great. I like it.
All right, that's it. But before we start talking smack about other coaches, thanks for tuning in to Locked On Nebraska today. Be sure to join us on a Mailbag Friday tomorrow. Get those questions in at lockedonneb@gmail.com. For those of you on video, we'll send you over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel on audio. Make your second listen. Locked On College Football. Thanks. Talk to you tomorrow.